He's the star of the show, and he is here with us now. Kevin James, welcome.
Thank you. Nice to be here.
I'm such a huge fan of your work going back for such a long time. But this is like some good comedy gold, what you got going on here.
It's a lot of fun on the show. It really is. I mean, to have Leah Remini back on is fantastic. Yes. It's amazing because we worked together for 9 years, and then we were off at 10. And to be able to have that opportunity to work together again is it's a blessing, man.
And you picked it right up. Like you guys are really married, like from your
because we're friends and we're family. It's like literally we feel like we've known each other forever, and I've always felt that way. You know, from our first meeting together, it just felt like, man, we get each other that way, and it worked out really well.
So talk to me about the last 2 episodes. What can we expect?
Yeah, tonight's episode is it's a pretty good moving episode about the Enzos, where the sale of Enzos. That I get it, and I end up buying it for or helping my kid and her husband, Kendra and Shell. They end up buying Enzos, which is a lot of fun. So they're the owners now, and it's going to be pretty cool.
One of the things I love about the show is you've had a lot of cool guest stars, other comics. Ray Romano's been on, Adam Sandler. I mean, do you have any favorite moments of working with some of those guys on the show?
I loved working with Billy Joel on the show. He was great.
Yeah,
and we had a fun time doing that, and he allowed us to shoot it in his concert, which was great. Also, Sandler, who's on with our final episode. We have a big one with.
Wow, I didn't know that. Okay.
Yeah. Big one with Chris Rock and Adam Sandler come on. And we play in this band. That we played. We revived this band that we played together in the 1980s, and we get back together called Smokefish, and it's pretty rough. I got to tell you, Sandler can sing, and he can play.
I know.
He's musically, he's
right.
fantastic. You know that, but me and Chris Rock, man, are just horrendous. It's so bad. It's really bad, but it's a great mix for a great final episode.
Smokefish? I love it.
Yeah, it's the band's name.
That's so cool. All right, so we already talked about Leia. I want to talk about this Netflix special you have coming out. And we were talking before, during the break, about doing stand-up and how some comics, they start out in stand-up and then they become big stars, and then they say, I don't do that anymore. But you still do it. What keeps you still interested in doing stand-up?
I love it. It was my first love. It was, I honestly, when I started doing stand-up, it wasn't to get, I got to get a sitcom. It eventually became that.
Right.
Then when the opportunities presented itself, or to get into movies and stuff, it was great. But I love doing stand-up for, the sake of stand-up, and I still do. That it's just an itch that only that can scratch, performing live is fantastic. But you have to be on your game and be able to do it. So we were finally able to dedicate time to put this special together. It had been 17 years, I think, since my last special. So we were able to do it, and excited to do it with Netflix, and it's streaming now, and it was such a blast. We did it at the Beacon Theater.
Yeah, so that's so cool, right here in New York City on 72nd Street. Let me ask you a question about comedy in general. I mean, would you consider yourself, you're from New York, do comics say to themselves or to their fans or to the audience, look, I'm a New York comic, the same way that like a Jim Gaffigan, for example, is like a kind of a Midwestern, he's got a Midwestern vibe to his stand-up. Would you say that? I always tried to gear my stuff to be as universal as possible, where I could kind of travel the country. And you tend to do better in certain areas and have, people relate to you a little bit more in certain areas. But for the most part, I try to be as universal as possible. Yeah.
I don't call myself like I'm a New York comic or this or that, but you can be classified, I guess, that way sometimes.
Yeah. Does it coming up in New York and in LA? Is there a particular vibe to doing the clubs in LA versus the clubs in New York?
I was, I never fit in the LA clubs as much as I did.
Really?
Yeah, as I did in New York. In New York, it was just, I loved it. It's just more. The people that I felt like I kind of connected with, but you did really well. I did really well in LA in certain areas, and then other places. But I've bombed in New York too. So it's both. It's just kind of what you feel like your rhythm, your groove, where you feel like you're connecting with people more. And I've always kind of feel like a little bit more in step on the East Coast.
Yeah. Well, you've got, I mean, obviously the show, and it's coming up to the last 2 episodes. You got this Netflix special. A lot of fans here, people here are like, Paul Blart is coming here? Like, that's incredible. Like, that's what, even though you've been doing stuff for so long and you're associated with a lot of different roles, people love Paul Blart.
It's a fun one, man. It was a fun one for me, too, because it was my first movie by myself, and it was just a fun project that we put together and wanted to make kids and families happy, and it was just so fun to see it do well.
Yeah.
That blew my mind too.
Yeah. Did it really?
It really did, because you hope people connect with it,
right.
And then when it happened, it was really exciting.
It's exciting for me to meet you, man. I've been a huge fan for so long. Thanks for coming by. We appreciate it.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you very much. This is so great. So you can watch Kevin Can Wait Mondays at 8, 7 Central, only on CBS.